how are you? Good to see you, Energy.
Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you.
You as well. I read your bio. And so you took the academic program and you are working with students
Yes.
to help bring mindfulness and clarity to their lives. And yeah, thanks for doing this today. It's always a pleasure to get to meet people who've been through the program and listen to their stories and learn more about them and get them connected to the community. So
Well, thank you for having me connect with you today. I really appreciate being invited. Thank you.
So is that your office? Is that
No,
your
this is my
your
classroom.
classroom? Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
like
it's the Oasis
whiteboards.
room.
So do you is class in right now? I mean, are you
Today is actually a remote day, so the kids
okay?
are at home doing some online learning, and it's kind of a planning day for the teachers. So so we're all in the building today, the teachers and
Oh, that's
teaching
lovely.
assistants.
Oh, I love whiteboards. It brings me back. It brings me back
This
to
is
those.
the kids' artwork.
Isn't it lovely? What
Thank
do you
you.
teach? What do you teach?
I'm a teaching assistant,
Mhm.
and this space is called the Oasis. It's a room. It's an alternative setting, so it's opportunities for alternative setting in schools. So this room is we do mindfulness in here. It's an academic support room. Um, it's a safe space where the kids can come in. They can have a quiet workspace. It's low lighting. Um, it's really actually pretty cool. It's fairly new. It's our wellness room, and I love it. So
That's
it's a
amazing.
great place to be. We're very fortunate.
I went to have a wellness room at my high school.
It's
You just
cool.
get to walk
Um,
in.
yeah, our team likes it. So the kids love it.
Oh, that's amazing. So I'd love to hear your story. When did you first find out about coaching? Your experience with it, and yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so actually, I've heard about coaching, prior to when I decided to take the course. There were different kinds of wellness coaches. I really didn't know a whole lot about it. We actually visited an academic coaching room when we were looking at different styles for our room here at our school, and it kind of just fit
Mhm.
with me, and I was like, what is this about? So I decided, really, when I started, was to enhance what I do at school. We're going to start this new wellness room. I felt like I could, you know use that piece. And what I discovered about coaching and taking the academic coaching through your program was, it was absolutely, it's just amazing. It's an amazing experience that I can share with my kids. Um, and it was an amazing experience for me. Just learning so much about myself, being able to carry those tools with me. And I can't always do a traditional coaching setting at school. You have a 40-minute session. And so, really, a lot of the tools, it's been awesome to be able to pull bits and pieces. There's some kids that need coaching, there's some kids that need mindfulness, organization. And it really is just been great for me all the way around.
That's great. That's good to hear. And I mean, it's something that I developed while I was working in a classroom. So I had a very specific audience in mind. And it's so good to hear because I'm not on the front lines as much anymore, how people are using it.
It works.
It does. It does. And I sometimes I feel like I sometimes I feel like the cat that swallowed the canary, in the sense of like, hey, education, this is going to be the future. Like this, it works. Like young people thrive when they're given this kind of dedicated attention and listening, which they get nowhere else in their lives. And that's what
Absolutely.
I feel like that's the essence of what we're doing as academic life coaches.
I was actually working with a senior the other day, and she was feeling stressed,
Mm.
and we started talking about, we didn't do a traditional coaching session with like the inner critic. And I just kind of like really introduced it to her. And I'm like, we all have these little creatures inside of us, and she has a lot of that, the mind, keeps going and going and going, and some of the negative talk. And we were able to talk about that. And, I was able to, speak with her, and, I talked to her a little bit about coaching. I told her we could do this someday if you're open to it. I said it might help you to be able to, put this little monstrous thing aside, and, put it aside. And, and I was telling her, everything that you have is already inside of you. I said, I don't want you to think that this is like I'm talking like woohoo, you know. And so she kind of laughed. And so she's open to that. And I just think that, that's another example of just pulling those things in. These kids, especially in this with COVID going on, they come into school, they're wearing masks all day. Things are separated. They can't do she was a soccer player. They can't do their sports. We have these crazy days where they're remote and they have to go home, once a month or whatever. And then, we bring them back in. So I think just bringing some of what coaching can do for you into their lives, like you said, is the way of the future, because coaching and being coached just gives you so much hope. Like it's just, it really does. So it's just
Yeah, it's true. It's something where I think it's going to happen. This is the future, simply because the fundamentals are correct. This works. This approach is powerful. We've done the knowledge-centered approach in education for a very long time. That's not, it's not, I think it's running its course.
yeah.
And I really think that this curiosity-centered, student-centered approach is what is replacing the knowledge-centered approach. And if something works, it's going to be adopted by someone at some time. Everyone else is going to either fall behind or mimic it in some way.
Right.
Where do you see, and oddly enough, I think some of the biggest resistance to coaching, to academic life coaching, comes from teachers and parents. Where do you see those attitudes, or how do you see when you're talking to your colleagues about academic life coaching, what are some of the responses that you're seeing?
I think that there would be some of my colleagues that are very, very open to it. For example, today, like one of the counselors, I've known him a long time. I've worked with him for about 15 years. And then I knew him for 5 years before that, because my kids were in the school system. And and he was telling me, if you decide to retire, you have so much, so much to offer. And he knows that, I've taken the coaching. And so I think I get a lot of support. And I think I get support from our superintendent, like as far
That's
as
awesome.
having the
That's great.
mindfulness and
Yeah.
and in the coaching within our space. I think that, like she's open to, to changes and really what's best for kids. And then, there's others that I think just don't know what it is, or they don't understand. And I think it's and our wellness room is new,
Mm.
so this is just our last year was our pilot year, and then we shut down in March, and then we came back this year. And I was really glad that we could open up the doors,
Right.
because I wasn't sure how it was going to work. So um I think that people will be open
That's so
to
awesome.
coaching, because it's good for kids.
Right. I found that it's usually, there are about a third they hear about coaching and they are immediately actively enthusiastic, big allies. And if leadership is in that camp, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
That's the win. About a third feel neutral,
Right.
quizzical, don't know about it. And then another third are actively against it.
Right.
What? You get paid to not give solutions and ask questions and just, what are they paying you for? You're not giving any advice? Like, how does that work? That's so counterintuitive to what we offer, as teachers.
I think though that things are changing too because of the 21st century classrooms and the way that kids learn today, and having them do so much exploring on their own. Um, I mean, which works for some kids, and then there's other kids that is harder for them to grasp. So I think coaching is good for all of the kids. Um, even some of the trauma, I work with some of the kids that trauma kids, and I think it can be helpful for them,
Mm-hmm.
as for everyone.
Oh, it's happening. One of the projects I've followed was Sugata Mitra, who he gave a TED talk about building a school in the cloud, where he gave students access to computers and then had what he called, I forget the name of it, like cloud grannies or crowd grampies. Like basically older adults whose role was to simply encourage and celebrate the little ones like a grandparent would. So just to ask curious questions, which to me was a lot like academic life coaching,
Mhm.
because you're simply, you're setting, there's a project, and this wellness room reminds me a lot of that, of these school in the clouds. It feels like a room where students are allowed to be proactively curious
Yes.
and go after what they need. What's it like to be, in some ways on the forefront of what's happening in education in terms of buildings and awareness of wellness and coaching and these kind of concepts?
I haven't really thought about it because sometimes it's like a blur. Um, Hmm. Well, I think it feels really good. There's days when it's super challenging because, I kind of felt like, what am I doing? Because you're doing so many different things at once. And it's not like I don't have support or I don't have a team, but it's like, sometimes you'll have kids that come in and they're at the same time. So you'll have like I'll have a student that's remote, so I have somebody on the computer at the same time. Somebody's coming in and, can we do some mindfulness? Can we do our meditation? Sure. And then there might be somebody else that needs something else, and then the kid that's on the computer needs academic support, or and and you're helping to make some of these plans, or they need um help with their English, or and I have the kids that come in are grades 7 through 12. We're in a small school, which really has its benefits,
Right.
and all the kids are welcome. So we have, the very, very high functioning to very to children that have cognitive disabilities that come in as well. So so the days go by quick.
Yes.
It feels really good. Um, and in the midst of COVID, it's, we're cleaning in between everything, spraying everything down in between, and you know, uh, it's been interesting, but the kids that come in here are smiling, you
Right.
know, they're happy. Um, and if they weren't happy, we try to get them the help, get a counselor in, or try and get them what they need. So, and they have alternative seating too. Like, well, right now I'm on my yoga ball. I'm just sitting in the yoga ball chair. They have just different areas that they can sit in. We have carpets and yoga mats, and so they can draw. We do. The art teacher comes in here. They do art therapy. So it's an interesting.
That's
It feels
amazing.
good. It feels good.
It's almost like it's hard to see the revolution and when you're so close to it sometimes, you know, it's
Yes.
because it just feels like life, you know, it just feels like, okay, you're doing your job supporting students like we always do as teachers, but but the paradigm is shifting
Right.
if the administration is putting, you know, you in a spot where it is an intention. When you walk into that room, that's an intention
Yes.
to be in a wellness space. Yeah, it's that's amazing. Um, I love coaching and education. I feel like I feel like this is what is because the impact is so extreme. If you, I mean, I have students who've contacted me 10, 15, 20 years later saying, remember this conversation that we had as a teacher? This was even before I was even coach trained.
Hmm.
You know, then coach training gives you all these tools. What are some of the tools that you find that you rely on the most other than inner critic when you're working with the students you're working with?
Ooh, I think a lot of time I think the curious, like you had said before, I think the curious questions. Um, I think sometimes, like to bring in a traditional tool, there's one student that I have in mind. We're going to work on some core motivation. Um, and it depends. Like she's a senior, so she's and she's very high functioning. So she's at a developmental level where she can really utilize that. You know, she's
Mm,
thinking about colleges and things like that. A lot of times I do a lot of listening
mm,
um, with my students. So I think I do a lot of that empathetic listening and try to really focus on what they have to say. I'm also not afraid to share my life experiences. I also I think I ask them a lot of questions so that they can try and figure some of these things out on their own. Um, Goal setting, you know, and
mhm.
even on the board, like I'll I'll write a question on the board. Like when we came back for 2020 for 2021, you know, what are you, what are your goals? You know, what are you thinking? And then tell them they don't have to be, these huge goals. It can be, this week I'm going to, whatever. Um, so I do a lot of listening. I'll pop up different quotes or curious questions. I try to give them the tools. Like this week, we did a mindful Monday after school, and I did end up mostly it was virtual, and I did end up with only 2 students, but giving them the tools with their breath work, just so that they can learn, the
Yeah.
breathing. This will, help you teach them the different kinds of breath work. Um,
Mm.
we work on a lot of we talk a lot about emotions. So I guess it's really kind of I've taken like the experience that I've had just like working with the kids over the years, um, the academic piece, and bringing the mindfulness in with the coaching, um, and even telling them, if you're feeling terrible today, you're having these panic anxiety attacks, you can rewire, we can learn to rewire our brains so that we can think a different way about some of these things that are happening to us. So those are kind of some of the things that I do. I don't think it's any one method. It's really a combination of things that I have pulled together
Right,
and just
right.
kind of go with it.
I think it's hard to quantify the impact in any one session. You know, is this the specific tool that you use that made the biggest difference? I think it's not a fair quantification of it, but simply empathetic listening, I feel like is 80% of the work of a coach
Oh yeah.
is listening. And what's amazing about uh, that listening process is I'm convinced in the next 100 years, 150 years, we're going to there will be something. We will find there's some energetic particle or something in the air that shifts when someone goes empathetic. And they found mirror neurons, right? Like there are mirror neurons in our brains. And I've read different things, and maybe that's not true, but I mean, it's in the space of there's something that happens between the connection of human beings when there's active imagination, asking myself, what's it like to be you? Consciously, mindfully, there's a shift that happens. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Yeah, I think that the interconnectedness with people, especially with, I work a lot of obviously with teenagers. It really is something that you have to, any conversation I think that you're having, relationship, it's really important to see somebody's point of view, or at least try to understand their perspective. Um, because you never know what it's like until you jump into somebody else's shoes. Um, that's even something that goes back in my thinking. My dad used to tell me that, you know, my dad, he's 84 and he's still like, he's with it, you know, like he's with the times, he's, you know, building new things, doing things, and you would never know. But he really taught me that at a really young age. So I think it's just very natural. Um, I think it's awesome to stay working with these young people like I do, um, and to try and keep with their perspective, because it keeps you fresh, um, and it really helps them to have somebody that will take that chance, that will listen to them, that will advocate for them if they need the advocation. And some of the kids that I work with, they might feel a little bit lost. Um, I had a conversation with a student last night, and I told him, geez, buddy, you got a year and a half left. You can do this, and you kind of try to understand where they're coming from, some of the, how they fell behind to begin with, and just listen to them, and love them. I love them, and I think that makes a difference.
I feel it. You feel the quality of listening. The quality of listening, I think, comes with the level of, empathy, level of imagination, but also I think the perspectives that we take on as coaches when we're listening. I was recently listening to a recording where I was coaching, and we're getting more demos together for the program, so we're just starting to put those out. And I was listening to one of myself coaching, and I was with Raj, and we were talking about it. And what struck me was how few words I was saying, but how you could feel the empathy in the call, even if there was silence. Like it just, like you can just feel it. It's in that. And I think what's most exciting to me about coaching and young people now is like, yeah, it's a new way of interacting. It's a new way of being with the student, but we also are starting to get numbers that show this is working. Like if a school implements a coaching program, then it works for students. What's some of the evidence that you see, or what are the things that this is like the work that you're doing is making a difference? Like, how would you quantify it? Or what are the things that you're seeing, or what are plans to quantify it? Or because numbers are powerful, especially when you're talking with administrators and other schools thinking about doing the same thing.
I think because it's so new, I think I'm not sure how to quantify it, other than I know that it works because the students buy into it. The students, I think, feel better. I think that if you can, reach them with a plan, they do better. And I think it would be awesome if we had time to have traditional coaching sessions with them.
Right.
Because I think that if it were to go that way, amazing things
Mhm.
could happen for these kids. But I think it's new enough in our district that it's kind of hard to really, really put a number for me personally. Maybe if you know.
Let's talk. I'm thinking, let's talk. Let's get it going, because I have ideas too. It doesn't have to be much, but I mean, just really charting, like, like even a lot of the work that I've done with most of universities, not as much with high schools and middle schools. Although I was a middle school high school, that's what I taught. I taught 7th to 12th grade Latin. So I know these people, these 7th graders, they start losing their minds halfway through 7th grade and regain them halfway through 8th grade. And you just got to make it through. You just got to be like, okay, they're going to make it. They're going to be okay. And by the time they get to 9th grade, I mean, I feel like there are a couple key milestone turning points, that happen around 9th grade. And by the time they get to 11th grade, I think a lot of their habits are set.
Yes.
And it takes more effort to get, more conscious hand-holding, 11th and 12th grade. But I feel like a really sweet spot of understanding themselves happens around that, 8th, 9th grade. Who am I as a student?
Mid 9th grade.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where coaching, this is like, if I had to drop like when to start, I think it's around then, like mid 9th, mid 8th grade, mid 9th grade feels like the points, and what do you see? You haven't, the students you've worked with over years. What I'm so curious about is the impact of students over years, like as you go 2, 3, 4 years into this. Wow. I'm just getting excited thinking about, like what I experienced when I was in the same spot was, there's a danger. Let's go here. Yeah. In the sense that I feel like there is a danger, maybe a trap in perspective where this work is seen as remedial, not as central to a student's education. And how is that, like, how is the program being, how is it being framed? Like, how are you working to frame it in, that this is something that is, like not remedial, but I don't know, not quite essential, but maybe as important, or a container for everything else that happens.
I think because it is an alternative space, and I think because we have so many kids that experience anxiety, that it's just essential. And I mean, and there are people that are like, what are they doing in there?
Right.
Maybe they don't, understand exactly what happens. But I think that it's just so vital. I think every school should have a wellness room.
Me too.
I think that I mean, offices and corporations, they should have a space, a space too, where people can come in and unwind and decompress and do their work.
Right.
And those are the things that, happen in here. You know, there's a lot of things, that are happening in this space, and we need it. I mean,
Right.
especially now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so fortunate. I mean, I know today's a remote day, but since September, our kids, some of our kids are virtual, that by choice, but we're open. We're so fortunate that our kids can just come to school. And I think even though this is an alternative room, but during COVID, it's kind of cool because it's a spot that people can come in and it's still kind of normal,
Right.
because it's, in their classrooms, some of the spaces were changed because, I mean, we still have to stay, social distance, 6 feet apart. We wear our masks. But I just think they can come in here and it just feels good.
Right,
Feels
right.
homey. It's
So nice. It's so
norm.
nice.
It's normalcy.
Right. It's
Even
so
though it's not
nice.
like it's an alternative room, but it's still it's a
Right,
place where you can come and you can feel good and everybody's welcome.
right, right. I mentioned this last interview that we did. Going to the dentist felt normal. It's like, oh, cool, because everyone is wearing masks anyway. So
Right.
it's like you go there and you're like, oh, this is great. It's like old times. Except I'm wearing a mask too, but I can take it off and it's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID's hard. There's no way around it. I think a turning point for me helped. A perspective that's helped that Moise and I have talked a lot about was how COVID, when there's a challenge like this, it exposes the cracks. It exposes the fissures in our own ability to hold it together. And from that perspective, it's an opportunity to look at what are our own cracks and what are we learning about ourselves to take that insight and come out on the other end even stronger. Jana, let's ready for some coaching questions. I have a
Sure.
couple for you.
Yeah.
So the biggest one is, what is COVID? What have been the cracks you've seen in yourself that you've experienced with this increased pressure of COVID?
Oh, I know that feeling tired, sometimes overwhelmed, um, how, you know, how am I going to do this again tomorrow? You know, just the kids feeling stressed. I was very stressed to come back to school. So over the summer, they offered some professional development. Um, and I was just like, okay, well, if they offer it in person, I'm going. So I did. I came in um, because I needed to come back into school. And I came into the classroom and I'm like, how am I gonna, how is this gonna work? I was stressed out about how are we gonna open the feel good room? Do you know what I mean? Where you can come
That's
in
right.
and not experience anxiety. And so the principal came in and my coworker and friend, she is at student support services. She's like, helps me with this room. And so she came in and we're like, okay. And, we just measured things and figured it out. And just then I relaxed a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, well, the kids are still coming. And I'm like, oh, do we have to put these things in plastic bags? I'm a total hands-on person, And so for me, I think it was the stress of um, social distancing. If I have a kid that wants to, cry or hug me, how are you, so all of these things. But then, I just kind of just went with it. Um, During shutdown, it was hard because I so wanted to stay connected with the kids. I found myself walking in the woods. We live in the woods. I found myself walking in the woods with my dogs and making these little mindful videos and stuff for them and, putting those on, and um, had a connection cafe virtually. When we came back to school, we did outdoor dining so that we could
Yes.
be outside in the fresh air. It gets cold in the Adirondacks after a while. But I don't know if I answered your question, but
Uh, what's the no? It's good. I mean, so it's where did you find that resilience in yourself? Like where, uh, like you know what I mean? Like what 'cause you found it. You have to almost rise up to be of service to your students. Where did you find that in yourself?
and myself, I'm a I'm a fighter. I'm a pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of a girl. I think I learned resiliency at just a very young age, just growing up. And I'm an optimist. The sun will come out tomorrow. If I can't do this today, and I talk to my kids like this too. If you can't do this today, you know, tomorrow's a brand new day. Let's start over. Let's try again. And I think I just developed resiliency over the years with different trials and tribulations, you know, throughout my life. It's just, I think it's a gift, really. I mean, not everybody um, is resilient. And I think it's just, I don't know, personality perhaps, and just life, like my life journey, I think.
You found it. You
I
found something
found.
that you can rely on.
Yeah.
Uh, what's the like? When you feel into it and become even more aware and mindful of it right now? What's that feel like, or how would you describe it in you?
I would describe it as it's kind of like an inward thing. Um, I would describe it as just kind of being aware of yourself. Like, everybody gets sad. Everybody has, you know, a jumble of emotions in their bodies, in their minds. I think that if you can start to just know yourself a little bit, what makes you tick, I think recognizing your faults, and even not even, a lot of people say, the mindfulness, like stay in the present moment. And maybe that present moment isn't, depending on where you're at the time, isn't so wonderful, but you kind of have to find that within yourself. It's hard to explain. And
You're
just
doing great. Go for it.
yeah,
Yeah, you're doing
and
great. Yeah.
just go with it. Move forward. Um, Recognize who you are. Sometimes we don't like ourselves, um, but recognize that, and that's okay. And I think once you can come to some of those determinations, then you'll be able to have a brighter outlook, because in the morning, maybe something has happened differently the day before. You can always make things even a little bit better.
Right. As you're talking, I'm getting this image of. I feel like I have a cycle of, let's say something negative comes across, of uh, and I try to shorten the cycle as much as I can, but I might go into a doom and gloom perspective. This is
Right.
wah, no. Okay. Doom and gloom switches to sadness, like anger, sad, mad, maybe, which then has a choice of either going deeper into that and swirling, or getting into this like odd, almost like an unreasonable determination. Like, this is negative things happen. I have even more energy. I have even more, I have a more energy and determination to get over this thing that needs to be got over. As you're talking, I just can't help but think, I feel like it feels similar to, I'm a core motivation type 7. This feels like taking negative emotion, processing it, moving it, almost using it as fuel. Similar for yourself, change it. Like, how would you modify that? Or what's that like? What's that process, that cycle for you from initial negative to what you're describing?
All right. So if something, um, and again, this is like, you know, probably through life, as you go through different situations, um, you can learn from them. So I would say if I had something awful happen, and it would depend I mean, everybody's awful is, it depends on the person. I think that's hard. I think that, I guess maybe I try to rationalize,
Mm.
but I still have that optimism. Like if it was somebody that did something to me, I don't know. I'm the kind of person that sees the good in people. Um, so maybe that's what it is, that I can just kind of keep propelling forward. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's just lovely to hear your energy around it too. And to, listening to you deeply feel like, yeah, there's a stubbornness to see good, which I feel like is really serves the world well. You know what I mean? All right, so just looking at some of these questions, and Amy Sampton, I work with her at a 2.0. She's amazing. Hi, Amy. And then Shruti as well. You know, I have two thoughts. One, I would love to move, Amy, this, like what you wrote in this stuff. Can we put this on our blog? And Jana, do you see the Q&A from
Oh, I
yeah,
should
down
look at.
there? It's very long.
Okay.
And they're both like, Shruti wanted to see the room. Amy having a lot of questions about the program, which is true. I mean, this is like where my question about numbers and stuff like that was coming from, because and seeing yourself in this space of you being a pioneer, like you have a wellness room and a coaching program in a school as a trained certified academic life coach. That's a unicorn, Jana. That's a rare, precious thing that you've created.
Right.
There's a lot of hunger to knowing how did that happen, and how can you use what you have created as a way to help create other programs like this in schools. So thought one is, can we get you on the blog? Can we get you answering some of these questions on the blog and get a running log of how it's going? I would, like check-ins and see how, yeah, like just this progress.
Sure.
Yay. All right, we'll get you. So Amy, yes. So Amy, all these questions you have about how did it happen? How did it come to be? Like, what did it look like? These are things I mean, this is what I think will help further education's understanding of coaching and what's possible. And it's all connected. It all adds to the, to really this movement in education that we're trying to bring in more mindfulness and all of that. So Amy, I love your questions, but we're gonna have to dive into another time. They are big and juicy, and we'll move this to the Coach Training EDU blog. But Jana, to put a bow on this, and two things. Let's go first with advice you'd give a new coach starting out in their coaching journey. And then how can we as a Coach Training EDU community find you, follow your story, what you have a website, social handles, like beyond, and we'll put links on the blog. But let's start with advice to a new coach starting out.
So to a new coach, I would say just, go with your gut. Explore your options, and just know that you're doing a good thing, and never be afraid. You can never ask too many questions. So I find Ashley, she's been really helpful to me. Just know, and also just knowing, stay with the community um, of coaches. Just even being able to go on the blog, or going and watching the other graduate stories, things like that. Stay connected, and just don't be afraid to ask for help, ask questions, talk to your colleagues, ask for some support from your family, and just know that you're doing a great thing.
Jana, thank you for that. I think the community and staying connected to the community is one of the most valuable aspects of this training, and there is a richness in the experiences of everybody that constantly blows me away. Where can people find you? Where? Yes.
Geez. So I just made a website. So I'm just a tiny bit tech savvy, probably enough just to be a danger to myself. So I did.
The best kind. Yeah.
I did just start a web page. It's Life with Jana. So that's out there. I mean, I have my personal Facebook page. I just started a blog on my web page. So that's really, like I'd said before, I have the confidence now, I think. And again, this is through being a part of your community, to be able to be like, okay, well, I can do this outside of school if I choose to. So I'm going to be doing a wellness weekend sometime in May, and that's outside of school. So I can let Ashley know also
We'll get some links. We'll get some links on the blog, on the Coach Training EDU blog. And Jana, thank you. This is it's amazing to know you're doing that work. It's like I know that it might not seem so glamorous or so unique in a lot of the school, from an outside perspective, from someone who's been in the education space for a while. It's a big deal to have a trained coach in a wellness room in a school. I don't care how big or small it is. That's a big deal. This is, I think, it's a really easy, cost-effective thing for schools to add that I know has a big positive impact that we can't even measure yet. So thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for being part of this community.
I appreciate it.
For those listening live, Amy, Shruti, thanks for being there. I want to we'll get photos. We'll see. We'll see what we can do with looking just how we can promote, Jana, what you're up to in a way that other schools have the courage and confidence to also take the plunge as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you, people who are listening. Thank you, those listening to the recordings. This has been another Coaching and Flourish podcast. I'm your host, John Andrew Williams. We'll see you soon.